So I can add notes this way, but okay, now I want to add another one. I can't. I just keep modifying the same one. Anybody overcome this? Anybody happen to do this? Well, probably you didn't use on changes, right? You probably did non-submit, in which case it maybe wasn't a problem. I don't know. Anybody do this? But it is a problem, isn't it? We have this nice, pretty button over here that looks like it's supposed to do that. But, gosh, that's all the way over in sidebar. And I don't even want to think about how we would do that. Mostly I know that the real solution, we're going to use routing, and we do not want to talk about routing today. That is too much. So let's just add another button down here that'll kind of clear it out. What do you say? So on the form, in the JSX, down here under the paragraph that has the text area in it, I'm just going to throw a button of type submit. Oops. And I'm going to say save and new. You can split that on multiple lines if you want to. Doesn't matter. Now that doesn't really look like a button because of some styles I have in there. So I'm going to add an extra style that makes it look a little more like a button. Let's look at our form CSS. So we say a button inside note form should have no border, no background, and no padding. I can add a more specific rule underneath that. A submit type button inside note form should have this pretty blue background color and a text color of white on blue, a bigger font size, and some padding. And hey, while we're at it, a border radius, so it'll have nice rounded corners. I'm putting this rule in Slack. Yay! It looks like a button. It just doesn't do anything. So since we made it a submit button, we could add a submit handler to the form, right? Which in React we would do by putting on submit in here. Equals what? How about we make a new method called handle submit. And we'll use a property initializer so that this is bound correctly. That's in the event, because we probably need to do event.prevent default. So we say form on submit equals this dot handle submit. And what do we need to do? I'll just console log for right now just to make sure it works. Submitted. Oops. Typity type. Submitted. Good. What do we really want to do? Why does it keep updating the same one? Because it's the same object, right? So we need it to be a new object. So what if we set this.state.note, because that's where this is getting its values, right? What if we set it back to a blank note? Oh, we can't just say this.state.note equals blank note, right? Because it wouldn't re-render the DOM. We need to say this.setState, pass it an object, note colon this.blank note, the return value dot blank note. Make sense? So now it's a different one with a different ID. So when it gets back up to app.js and it starts updating based on its ID, it's no longer going to be updating the same darn one. It's going to be a new one because the ID is going to change. At least we think so. Let's see what happens. All right. This is one note. There it is. Save and new. All right, it blanked it out. This is a totally separate note. There it is. So now we can add all kinds of notes. So I suppose we don't need these hard-coded ones anymore, huh? Let's get rid of those. Back in app.js, when we set the initial state, notes can just be an empty object. Or, yeah, not state, but notes. All right, so it'll start out with no notes until we start adding them. No notes. Add one, save and new. Here's another one. Save and new. Even more notes. Yay! We did it. Add a new note, a new blank note, when the form is submitted. So still, why does it update it in place until we do that? It decides where to replace it in state based on its ID. We set the ID up here, so it must mean that back in the form, it has that ID. And that's because up in app.js, we don't make a copy of note. We actually pass note itself into there. And that's going to be passed by reference. So the ID is going to make it down to note form because we just modified the original object. So any further changes we make, the next time we call this.props.save note and pass that note in, the ID is going to go with it this time. So when it checks to see if it's empty and it should assign a new date stamp, it doesn't because it's already there. It's already there from the last time.